Did you know that, alongside its luxury fashion giants, France also operates one of Europe's largest agricultural systems, generating more than $96 billion in revenue each year? After a difficult 2024 marked by extreme weather and falling output, French agriculture regained momentum in 2025 as grain and wine production recovered. But behind that rebound is a system facing unprecedented pressure. So how have French farmers managed to revive the entire sector? And how are they coping with rising energy, fertilizer, and labor costs, along with increasingly severe extreme weather across Europe? Today, Agriculture Insight takes a closer look at French agriculture, where large-scale production must constantly adapt to strict standards in order to maintain its role as a pillar of the entire European Union. Let's get started. If there is one French agricultural product that stands above every standard, it is Champagne grapes, the only grapes with the privilege to create authentic champagne, the luxury sparkling wine with more than 300 million bottles opened around the world each year. And the key point is this: Champagne is not just a type of wine, it is a place. Only bottles produced in the Champagne region of northeastern France are allowed to carry this name under one of the strictest protected designation systems in the world. Here, the cold climate, chalky soils, and more than 34,000 hectares of vineyards must all follow extremely strict rules. This cold climate helps the grapes retain high acidity, the factor that creates Champagne's sharp, fresh, and distinctive sensation in every sip. The three core grape varieties that define the entire industry are Chardonnay, which brings elegance, Pinot Noir, which adds depth, and Pinot Meunier, which helps balance the finish. To protect quality, 100% of the grapes must be harvested by hand in whole clusters. Growers have to cut each cluster manually and keep it intact during transport, because even a slightly crushed skin can release red pigments that may affect an entire batch of wine. But the biggest difference between Champagne and ordinary wine lies in the fermentation process. At first, it has no bubbles at all. Only during the second fermentation inside a sealed bottle, when sugar and yeast produce trapped CO2, do millions of tiny bubbles form, creating Champagne's signature sparkling texture that cannot be easily replicated. For Champagne blended from base wines of different years, the wine must be aged for at least 15 months. For vintage Champagne, meaning Champagne made only from grapes of one especially good harvest, the aging period lasts at least 3 years. One reason why in the United States, Champagne is often around twice as expensive as mainstream Cabernet Sauvignon and up to 3 times more expensive than Chardonnay. In southern France, there is a melon once praised as a delicacy reserved for the Pope, and to this day it remains a symbol of Provence's summer, the Cavaillon melon. This variety is grown in a region with over 300 days of sunshine per year, under very specific conditions: intense daytime heat, cool nights, and mineral-rich soil. The strong day-night temperature difference, sometimes reaching up to 15 degrees Celsius, allows the fruit to accumulate high natural sugar levels while maintaining a gentle sweetness, along with a distinct aroma that is noticeable even before the fruit is cut open. The entire harvesting process is still done entirely by hand. Before picking, growers carefully observe the skin's web-like pattern, the slight loosening of the stem, and even rely on scent to determine the exact moment of ripeness, the peak point of flavor development. They then use specialized clippers to cut the stem rather than pulling it by hand, preserving the internal structure and maintaining the fruit's natural juiciness. Immediately after harvesting, the melons are transported to processing facilities within hours, where they are cleaned and sorted on site to minimize storage time. Due to their regional specialty status and limited shelf life during long-distance transport, most Cavaillon melons are consumed domestically in France. Each fruit weighs only around 800 grams to 1.2 kilograms, but its sugar content can reach nearly 15 degrees Brix, delivering a richer sweetness and a far more pronounced aroma compared to cantaloupe melons, which are typically milder and less complex in flavor. Few people realize that France is one of the world's largest producers of sugar beets, regularly competing with Germany and Russia in the race to supply sugar to Europe, a region that relies very little on sugarcane. Across vast fields in the north, France produces around 30 to 35 million tons of sugar beets each year, creating a strategic raw material base for the entire continent. Unlike sugarcane, which can be harvested almost year-round, sugar beets have only one harvest season. In autumn, the entire industry enters an intense peak period lasting less than 100 days. Massive combine harvesters operate simultaneously. They cut off the leaves, use vibrating steel lifters to pull the roots from the ground, then run them along conveyor belts for cleaning, before transferring them directly into parallel moving storage units. Thanks to optimized hybrid varieties with a sugar content of around 16%, meaning nearly 1/5 of the root is pure sugar, yields can reach up to 70 tons per hectare, effectively turning each field into a true sugar mine in temperate conditions. But what truly sets France apart is not just its output, but how it extracts value from every part of the crop within a fully integrated system. After harvesting, the beets are transported almost immediately to processing plants for sugar extraction. The refined product goes into the food industry, the pulp is pressed and dried for animal feed, and molasses, the portion that can no longer crystallize, is fermented into bioethanol, a renewable fuel. As a result, almost nothing goes to waste. France is now one of Europe's leading bioethanol producers, where gasoline blended with ethanol made from sugar beet alcohol is widely commercialized alongside traditional fossil fuels. From an agricultural crop once covered in mud, the French have created a biofuel that helps reduce dependence on oil, not only supporting more stable combustion in gasoline engines thanks to its high octane rating, but also helping cut a portion of carbon emissions compared with conventional petroleum fuels. And now, let's move to the historic region of Burgundy, where the mild climate, vast grasslands, mineral-rich soil, and long summers allow grass to grow almost continuously throughout the year. These conditions have turned the region into the capital of Charolais cattle, the iconic beef breed of French livestock farming, and one of the highest meat-yielding cattle breeds in Europe. What makes Charolais special is their remarkable ability to convert feed into muscle with extremely high efficiency. Their diet is relatively simple: nutrient-rich fresh grass, hay, and high-protein legumes, followed by silage corn and grains during the final stage to accelerate growth. But behind that simplicity lies a highly precise nutritional management system designed to maximize lean muscle development rather than fat accumulation. An adult Charolais bull can weigh up to 1.6 tons, roughly the weight of a luxury SUV. Even more impressive, Charolais calves can gain around 1.2 to 1.6 kilograms per day, placing them among the fastest-growing breeds in the commercial beef industry. That means they can reach slaughter weight in just 15 to 18 months, significantly faster than many traditional cattle breeds, and dramatically shortening the beef production cycle. This is also why Charolais beef is often positioned in the upper mid-range to premium segment across Europe. While it is not as expensive as top-grade Wagyu, livestock producers value Charolais highly for its exceptional economic efficiency. Their dressing percentage can reach around 70%, meaning nearly 2/3 of the animal's body weight becomes usable meat, one of the highest ratios in the global beef industry. This biological structure produces a very distinctive type of beef: lean, low in intramuscular fat, yet still capable of remaining tender when prepared properly. A key reason why Charolais beef fits so naturally into French cuisine, where chefs often use minimal seasoning to preserve the meat's original character. In southwestern France, geese are far more than just ordinary poultry. They are the center of a food empire worth hundreds of millions of dollars each year, and the origin of one of the most controversial delicacies on earth, foie gras. The most common breed raised here is the Landaise goose, typically farmed under a semi-free range system. During the day, the birds roam across grasslands to develop muscle and natural fat, before being supplemented with corn, a feed considered the backbone of poultry farming because it is rich in starch, high in energy, and especially effective for fat accumulation. But the greatest value of geese does not lie in their meat. It lies in their livers. In the wild, geese migrate thousands of kilometers to escape winter and search for food, so their bodies naturally store large amounts of fat in the liver as a kind of fuel tank for long-distance flights. The French have taken advantage of this biological mechanism to create foie gras, a delicacy associated with European aristocracy for centuries. However, the most controversial part of the process is gavage, the final fattening stage. During the last 2 to 3 weeks before slaughter, the geese are fed large quantities of starch-rich corn mixture through a feeding tube. As a result, a liver that would normally weigh far less can expand to around 600 to 900 grams, roughly 7 to 10 times its natural size. Beyond its unusual size, foie gras contains nearly 80% fat, creating an almost buttery texture while still remaining intensely flavorful and melting almost instantly on the tongue. Even so, this force-feeding method has long faced strong criticism from animal welfare organizations, which view it as an artificially induced fatty liver condition that causes suffering to the birds. On the other hand, many French farmers argue that they are simply replicating a natural fat storage ability already present in migratory birds, while also emphasizing that a goose's esophagus is far more flexible than that of mammals. This debate has lasted for decades and has led many countries to ban foie gras production entirely. Despite the controversy, France has maintained a dominant position, at one point accounting for around 70% of global foie gras production. But surprisingly, most fatty liver products on the market today actually come from moulard ducks rather than geese. The reason is highly practical. Ducks grow faster, their livers develop more consistently, production costs are lower, and they are better suited to industrial-scale farming. As a result, true goose foie gras has been pushed into a more premium niche, rarer, more expensive, and highly valued by food connoisseurs for its cleaner and more delicate aftertaste compared to duck foie gras. So, would you be willing to spend hundreds of dollars just to taste a slice of foie gras instead of ordinary beef or pork liver? In neighboring Germany, collecting many species of snails is considered illegal. But in France, people are still allowed to harvest snails starting in early July, helping supply more than 20,000 tons of escargot consumed each year, enough to transform a garden pest into one of the signature dishes of French cuisine. France's mild climate, high humidity, and relatively gentle summers are especially well suited for Helix aspersa maxima, a fast-growing, adaptable snail species widely raised in semi-natural farming systems. Since each mature snail weighs only around 15 grams, many farms in Burgundy must raise anywhere from 100,000 to 500,000 snails per season to achieve commercial-scale production. Instead of being kept in enclosed barns like cattle or pigs, snails are raised inside cool, humid, netted enclosures equipped with misting systems that operate almost continuously. Inside, farmers place multi-layered wooden panels for the snails to cling to, shelter under, and grow on. Their diet includes brassica plants, ground grains, mineral supplements, calcium, and especially nettles, a mineral-rich plant that helps strengthen shell development. This is particularly important because the shell functions almost like an external skeleton, forming the main protective structure of the snail's body. However, behind this seemingly low-resource system lies an extremely delicate process. Snails are highly sensitive to temperature, humidity, fungal diseases, and environmental stress. If conditions become too dry, they can enter hibernation-like dormancy for weeks instead of growing. On the other hand, excessive rain or humidity can also lead to mass die-offs caused by fungal infections or suffocation from excess moisture. After harvesting, the snails are fasted for several days to completely cleanse their digestive systems before processing. They are then boiled, removed from their shells, cleaned of mucus, and cooked with butter, garlic, and parsley. arguably the most classic escargot recipe you will encounter. A starter portion is typically sold for around $15 to $25 at French restaurants in the United States. Many people hesitate to try this dish because they expect a slimy texture. But high-quality escargot is actually thoroughly cleaned, with a tender, slightly chewy texture and a mild flavor that's somewhat similar to mushrooms or clams. With more than 30 million bison once driven to the brink of complete extinction, the United States has achieved an unprecedented feat, reintroducing this iconic animal to revive dying landscapes while simultaneously transforming it into a golden link in the multi-billion-dollar premium red meat industry. This is not only the largest wildlife conservation effort in modern history, but also the story of how American ranchers raise, care for, and process hundreds of thousands of bison every year. Is this nation truly saving the giant animal of the Great Plains, or turning it into a new form of economic resource? Join Agriculture Insight as we explore the deeply paradoxical journey of the greatest engineers of the North American prairie. To understand why bison are capable of reviving an entire dying landscape, we must look back at the tragedy of the North American prairie that lasted for more than 400 years. Before Europeans set foot in North America, this land was home to a one-of-a-kind ecosystem, a vast sea of grass stretching from Canada to Texas, so immense that scientists came to call it the Great Bison Belt. Within this landscape, tens of millions of bison moved like black rivers across the green prairie, becoming the beating heart of the entire ecosystem, the animal Americans famously call the buffalo of America. In less than 50 years, bison became targets of wolves, bears, and humans, causing their population to collapse from more than 30 million animals to only around 500 surviving individuals. The soil became compacted, native grasses gradually died off, and the ecosystem itself began collapsing as well. It was at that moment that the United States began to realize that the prairie could not survive without the animal that had shaped it for thousands of years.
This tall grass.
And then, in the early 2000s, as many restoration efforts continued to fail, a bold idea emerged: let nature operate again as it did before human intervention.
And that is something that
The last surviving bison herds were bred, protected, and gradually reintroduced into Yellowstone, Montana, Wyoming, South Dakota, and massive ecological restoration projects such as American Prairie. So why could a single species revive an entire dying landscape? Unlike domestic cattle, which often remain in one place and compact the soil into hardened patches, bison almost never stay too long in a single area. They constantly disturb the topsoil, spread seeds through their thick fur and waste, and create alternating short grass and tall grass zones that allow hundreds of other species to coexist across the prairie. Even when these giants roll on the ground, their nearly one-ton bodies create shallow depressions that retain water, micro-nurseries that help seeds germinate across the prairie. Some ecologists even call bison the last ecosystem engineers of the Great Plains. And the remarkable reality is this: wherever bison return, the prairie slowly comes back to life as well. For many Native American tribes, the return of bison carries a meaning far greater than ecology or economics. For centuries, this animal served as food, clothing, tools, and nearly the entire foundation of survival for tribes living across the Great Plains.
From north to south.
But the greatest paradox lies here. Most of today's bison recovery does not come from wild reintroduction programs. Although rewilding efforts have helped revive the Great Plains, around 95% of today's bison population actually exists inside commercial ranches serving the premium red meat industry, where the modern economy has become the most powerful conservation tool for the species. In many ways, bison survived by becoming economically valuable once again. And to understand the journey behind this multi-billion-dollar industry, we must begin with the most primal instinct bison have never lost: the mating season on the North American prairie. From July to September each year, the vast American prairies transform into a true battlefield. This is the season when male bison display their strength through massive muscular bodies and violent clashes, driven by powerful reproductive instincts during the mating season. Interestingly, bison are a polygynous species, where one dominant male can mate with multiple females within the herd. And to earn that breeding right, they must first win brutal confrontations against rival males. As the mating season begins, male bison mark their territory by pawing the ground, rolling in dust, or even in their own urine. That pungent signal represents dominance, a warning to rivals and a primal call to nearby females. Once they identify a rival, they charge into each other with full force, using both horns and foreheads, willing to bleed or break their horns for the chance to pass their superior genes on to the next generation. This process is critically important because the winner not only gains mating rights, but also reinforces his dominant status and leadership role within the herd. Meanwhile, weaker males may never get a chance to reproduce if they are not strong enough to compete. After defeating his rivals, the dominant bull begins approaching the female he chooses by circling around her and constantly sniffing her body. They communicate through their own subtle language, and once the female accepts, the mating process happens quickly and decisively. Although it lasts less than 20 seconds, it remains the climax of hours, sometimes even days, of brutal competition between the males. But a single mating is never enough. With seemingly endless energy, the dominant bull continues searching for other females within the herd, repeating the cycle of conquest and reproduction throughout the breeding season. During this period, one mature bull can mate with between 10 and 20 females, passing superior genetic traits on to the next generation born into the harsh wilderness. After mating, female bison enter a pregnancy period lasting around 9 months. Typically, the mother gives birth to a single calf in late spring or early summer of the following year, entirely through natural instinct without human intervention. Remarkably, only about 30 minutes after birth, a bison calf is already able to stand up and follow its mother, a clear demonstration of the powerful survival instincts of this wild animal. But to raise hundreds of thousands of animals for the modern premium red meat industry, ranches across the United States still have to develop specialized care and management systems designed specifically for young bison. At modern bison ranches, calves are closely managed during their first 6 months of life, the fastest growth stage of their development. From weighing only around 20 to 30 kilograms at birth, a bison calf can reach more than 150 kilograms in just half a year. At around 4 to 6 months old, they begin weaning and transition to a diet rich in natural grasses, hay, and supplemental grains. The key to raising hundreds of thousands of high-quality bison lies in combining controlled ranch systems with natural free-range grazing across vast landscapes. It is this combination of modern management and constant natural movement that creates the lean muscle, low-fat content, and distinctive flavor that make bison meat one of the most premium red meats in the United States. Although most bison today live inside tightly managed ranches, their primitive wild instincts have almost never disappeared. Female bison still choose to raise their calves across vast and dangerous landscapes, where survival skills are forged from the very first days of life. From the moment they are born, bison calves must learn how to keep up with the herd across enormous grasslands, respond quickly to warning signals from their mothers, and even practice swimming through fast-moving rivers. All of these are essential survival skills in a harsh environment that has never been fully domesticated. Despite their massive and rugged appearance, bison are actually highly emotional animals. For many ranchers in Montana or South Dakota, bison are far more than livestock. After years of living alongside the herd, some ranchers say certain bison begin recognizing familiar truck sounds, the smell of food, or even the caretakers who regularly appear across the prairie. Although they do not possess the complex intelligence of dolphins or crows, they still display a remarkable form of survival intelligence. In particular, when living in a safe and stable environment, bison become extremely curious, exploring and interacting with their surroundings like children discovering the world for the first time. With ranches spanning thousands of hectares, controlling bison herds has never been a simple task. Today, many modern ranches have begun using drones to monitor herd movement, detect unusual behavior, and help manage feeding operations on a massive scale. After only around 2 years, a young bison calf can develop into a giant weighing nearly 1 ton, with the enormous shoulder hump that almost no other livestock species can rival. Although they are raised in semi-wild conditions and spend most of their lives outdoors, bison still need to be gathered periodically for health inspections, vaccinations, and growth monitoring. From 2 to 4 times each year, American ranchers use trucks, ATVs, and horseback riders to gradually herd the bison back toward the ranch's central handling facilities. Each individual is fitted with an electronic ear tag, assigned a unique identification number, and managed through a personal record system. But controlling animals weighing nearly 1 ton has never been a simple task. To ensure the safety of both the bison and the handlers, modern ranches use a specialized restraint system known as a squeeze chute. Built from ultra-durable steel, this device gently compresses both sides of the bison's body to keep the animal still for a short period of time, preventing sudden charges or violent movements that could destroy fences and cause severe injuries. Without this device, how many people do you think it would take to restrain one of these incredibly powerful giants? Once fully grown, bison are typically divided into one of 2 main paths: becoming breeding stock for commercial reproduction or entering the premium red meat supply chain. Each year, around 8,000 to 10,000 bison are sold at specialized auctions across the United States and Canada, based on factors such as age, breed, weight, genetic background, and reproductive potential. The growing demand for bison meat has caused the economic value of this animal to surge in recent years. Compared to the massive industrial beef industry, bison meat production remains relatively small, a factor that has helped this lean, high-protein, and near-naturally raised meat become a premium product across North America. As a result, a high-quality breeding animal can be sold for anywhere between $3,000 and more than $20,000 USD. Meanwhile, most of the remaining animals enter the red meat industry, where hundreds of bison are processed every day to meet rapidly growing global demand. After nearly 2 years roaming across the vast grasslands of North America, the journey of most bison ultimately ends at meat processing facilities.
Every part of that animal is utilized. Truly do have zero waste.
There, they are brought into a tightly controlled environment where temperature, sanitation, and the entire operational process are carefully monitored.
Tendons, the skull, the hide.
After stunning and bleeding, the carcass moves into the skinning stage. An initial incision is made using a specialized knife from the groin up to the chest before the enormous thick hide is separated from the body along the limbs. While the large-scale beef processing industry in the United States relies heavily on automated machinery and conveyor systems, bison processing is significantly different. Due to their massive size, difficult to control strength, and much lower production volume, most bison processing is still performed manually by skilled workers using highly precise cutting techniques.
Taking a step back, the way these animals were raised up.
The meat is then divided into various commercial cuts. Premium sections such as chuck eye, short ribs, and lean round are especially valued for their dense muscle structure, low fat content, and richer flavor compared to conventional beef. It is this relative rarity, combined with near-natural ranching methods, that has gradually turned bison meat into one of the most premium red meat products in North America, with prices ranging from 20 to more than 50 USD per pound. And so after spending more than a century on the brink of extinction, bison today have not only returned to revive the Great Plains, but have also become the foundation of a multi-billion-dollar red meat industry. And perhaps the most difficult question is this: if bison no longer carried economic value, would they still be conserved on such a massive scale today? From the vast grasslands of North America, our next journey will take us to the Arctic, where reindeer herding still survives in one of the harshest environments on Earth.